deadly mix-up. A man helped an abandoned child but was killed with one punch by the boy's suspicious father. Pressure grows on the Greens to use the waka jumping legislation to force Darlene Tana from Parliament. A major health problem on Great Barrier Island. There hasn't been a permanent dentist there for 8 years. And later in sport, the tennis world's gone la-la for Lulu, but the Kiwi star is keeping her cool ahead of tonight's historic quarter-final. No mai haere mai, welcome to 3 News. The son of a man who was killed after trying to help an abandoned child at a Christchurch park says his dad was extremely caring and would help anyone he could. Maiwa Singh died after being punched by the boy's father who mistook his intentions. Sam Sherwood has this exclusive report.
This
video shows Maiwa Singh doting over his newborn grandson in Christchurch.
very lovely, always smiling, very happy man.
He was visiting from India for the birth of his son's first child.
They were loving it. They would spend, time with the kid and go for a walk and enjoy, being in New Zealand. Yeah, they were loving it.
But the family's joy turned to heartbreak when Singh took his daily walk one evening through Linwood Park. He came across a 7-year-old boy who'd been left there by his father to teach him a lesson for misbehaving. When Singh arrived here at Linwood Park, he found a 7-year-old boy who'd been left alone. He tried helping the young boy, but when his father returned, he saw Singh holding his hand and became enraged. The killer went home, but shortly after returned to the park where he punched Singh once in the jaw. Singh fell back, hitting his head. 2 days later, the 60-year-old died in hospital.
I saw my dad was lying on the bed with the life support, and I tried to talk, but nothing was there.
The family are devastated.
I was very angry. I'm still very upset and angry, but I can't do anything. Someone touched my dad, and I'm sitting here, can't do anything, man.
Singh's son and family had lived in New Zealand for 14 years and owned a business. But after his father was killed, they moved back to India this year to support his mother.
I had to sell everything, leave my house and move back to India with my mother. Because I'm the only son, I can't leave her alone just to die.
Losing one parent in the most brutal circumstances was already too much.
Well, with more on this, we're crossing now to Juliet Speedy, who's been working with Sam Sherwood on the story. So, Juliet, what has happened to the killer?
Well, Sam, a 32-year-old father of two has admitted the killing, pleading guilty to one charge of manslaughter here at the Christchurch High Court on Friday. But we can't tell you who he is because he's kept his name suppression right through until his sentencing, which is scheduled here for October this year. And Sam, it's also important to point out that although the killer is on record saying that he believed Maiwa Singh had ill intentions and was trying to abduct his son, police have confirmed to us that this is incorrect and Maiwa Singh had done nothing at all wrong. He was simply out on an evening walk trying to help a lost child when he was violently killed.
Juliet, thanks so much for the update. Pressure is building for the Green Party to force Darlene Tana out of Parliament. 3 News has spoken to the worker who sparked the investigation into her possible involvement in alleged migrant exploitation, and he just wants an apology. Political reporter Glenn McConnell has the story.
Santiago Latour-Palmer says working for ex-Green MP Darlene Tana and her husband turned his New Zealand dream into a nightmare.
Financially destroyed, emotional destroyed.
The former employee of Bikes and Beyond came forward in March claiming he was owed $25,000 by the business owned by Tana's husband Christian Hoff Nielsen.
I only claim my rights. I'm sorry for the people involved, but really Christian and Darlene lied to me. I hate that.
His story prompted the Green Party to launch an investigation, led by lawyer Rachel Burt, into what Tana knew. Yesterday, the party publicly called for Tana to resign from Parliament.
Please resign.
I never get interview with Rachel. I contact her, I call her, and I send text message to get interview.
Tana agreed to resign as a Green Party member, but remains an MP.
Darlene needs to do the right thing and resign. We do not think that she is fit to be an MP.
Acting Prime Minister Winston Peters says the Greens have an obligation to use the waka jumping legislation.
There are allegations verging on slavery when it comes to workers.
the Greens rallied against the Waka jumping bill, calling it an anti-democratic dead rat. But the Green caucus will, if Tana doesn't resign, meet to vote on whether to ask the Speaker to remove her. 2/3 of the caucus would need to support that motion.
Let's have some action. Here's a standout case why there's a need for the Waka hopping legislation right here, right now, and they've got no excuse at all to allow someone to get away with this.
In a statement last night, Darlene Tana didn't say if she was planning to stay or go, but she hit out at the investigation, saying, "I do not accept the findings of the report and believe that it substantially misrepresents the level of my involvement in my husband's business. The report does not say that migrant exploitation has occurred, let alone that I am responsible for it in any capacity." Santiago says that although Tana officially quit the business, she was involved.
She gave me my trial and she appears often, and also she managed the payments.
We have not heard back from Darlene yet. We have reached out to her regarding being able to release the executive summary of the report, and we hope that she complies so that we can put that out in the public.
I only wait for an apology, and I don't know why they denied and denied and denied.
Santiago is still waiting for his case with the Employment Relations Authority to be resolved.
Kia ora, Glenn. Have we heard anything more from Darlene Tana today?
Not a word. For the past 116 days, Darlene Tana has been missing in action. First suspended and then shunned by her party, the Green Party. While she's resigned from the Green Party, she is still a Member of Parliament. She is so far refusing to give up her seat here. And we still haven't seen that Green Party investigation. Now, I understand the Greens want everyone named in that report to sign off on its release. That includes Tana. If she is planning to stay at Parliament, she has some serious questions to answer from Santiago, from the public and from Parliament and the Greens around whether they will use that Waka jumping rule.
Ngā mihi, Glenn. Thanks so much. A warning, this next story is confronting. Rescuers continue to search for people trapped in the rubble after a Russian airstrike in Kyiv hit Ukraine's largest children's hospital. 5 cities were attacked in strikes across the country, leaving at least 36 people dead and dozens more injured. ITV's Neil Connery reports.
In Ukraine's largest children's hospital, they're scrambling to save lives. Doctors and nurses, now rescuers, after a Russian strike. The explosion ripped through Kyiv's Omadid Children's Hospital. Inside, cries from the most vulnerable of patients. Many of those in this children's hospital are being treated for cancer. In the aftermath of the attack, they had to find safety where they could. Many headed for the basement, as this place of sanctuary was engulfed by trauma. My daughter started screaming, Ina says. I ran into the ward and grabbed her, and there was a second explosion. I can't believe such a thing could happen. An attack on a hospital with sick children. There are no words. We are doing everything to clear the rubble, Kyiv's mayor Vitaly Klitschko says. Some people have died. There were also strikes on other parts of the city. We're doing everything we can, taking children to other hospitals. This was the moment the Russian missile struck the hospital. The daytime attack was one of a series across Ukraine today and has received widespread international condemnation.
The incidents in which missiles hit the Okhmadit National Children's Specialized Hospital in Kyiv, which is the largest pediatric facility in Ukraine, and another medical facility in Kyiv are particularly shocking. Directing attacks against civilian and civilian objects is prohibited by international humanitarian law, and any such attacks are unacceptable and must end immediately.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, heading to the NATO summit to get more support, met Poland's Prime Minister on the way to highlight military cooperation.
We recorded in our security agreement the formation and training of a new volunteer military unit, the Ukrainian Legion, on the territory of Poland. We have a very positive experience of the Ukrainian, Polish, Lithuanian brigade.
Russia denies targeting civilian locations, insisting the strikes were aimed at military facilities. But for these sick children, the horror of this war has reached new depths.
Moving to America now, and since that debate performance, doubts about Joe Biden's ability to defeat Donald Trump in November's presidential election have persisted. Now, in a letter to fellow Democrats, Biden has explicitly stated he's committed to staying in the race and winning it. ITV's Dan Rivers reports.
Despite growing calls for her husband to stand aside, today the First Lady was echoing the president's defiant tone.
For all the talk out there about this race, Joe has made it clear that he's all in.
It follows Joe Biden's highly unusual and unscheduled call into the aptly named Morning Joe show.
We're not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. I wouldn't be running if I didn't absolutely believe that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2024.
But Joe Biden's attempt to seize the narrative, along with a forceful letter to his party colleagues, didn't impress some Democratic strategists.
This is the most unusual thing most people have seen in their lifetimes. The leader of the free world, the most powerful man in the world, calling up people and begging for their support and saying, by the way, I'm really okay. This is outrageous.
Today's press briefing was dominated by reports a specialist in Parkinson's disease had visited the White House 8 times in 8 months. But amid increasingly animated exchanges,
we have to give them, we have to keep their privacy.
The White House refused to confirm who the doctor had seen.
I hear you. Guys.
Over the weekend, the President and First Lady got out of Washington to hit the campaign trail in Pennsylvania, but the questions followed them. Asked if the Democratic Party was behind him, his response was emphatic. Yes. At event after event, the message was simple.
We got a lot to do, folks, but we can do it.
His campaign goes on.
You know, I've been doing this a long time. And I, honest to God, have never more optimistic about America's future if we stick together.
His age might be a concern for his party, but it's being dismissed by his allies.
Don't let anybody talk about your age. You're a young whippersnapper.
This could be one of the most crucial weeks in Joe Biden's presidency. Not only is he facing crumbling support in the corridors of power here in Congress, but he's also got an incredibly high-profile NATO summit where his every word and movement will be closely analysed.
And our Prime Minister is flying into Washington, D.C. for the NATO summit hosted by the US President. Christopher Luxon is hoping for some one-on-one time with Joe Biden. Our chief political correspondent, Tova O'Brien, is there. And Tova, the PM's got his work cut out this week.
Yeah, does he ever, Sam? The Prime Minister landed in Washington, D.C. a short while ago. It's just gone 2 a.m. here. His arrival delayed by Hurricane Beryl, which wiped out power to millions of people in Texas. It also delayed the Prime Minister's first major bilateral meeting with Texas Senator Ted Cruz. That was supposed to be tomorrow. It will now be the following day. And you'll remember that Cruz ran against Donald Trump in 2016 for the Republican nomination for president. The two men hated each other, and now Cruz is endorsing Trump. So that is one of many big gets that the Prime Minister's managed to secure on this trip.
And Tova, Luxon's going to be heading into another big storm, of course, the one surrounding Joe Biden's political future.
Yeah, and Joe Biden is on the offensive. He is telling people to look at his interactions at the NATO summit by way of proof that he has the strength, the vigour, the stamina for another 4 years in office. There are 31 other leaders of NATO countries, all going to be here in Washington, D.C., alongside leaders of partnership countries like New Zealand. And Christopher Luxon is going to be angling for as many meetings with those world leaders as he can possibly get. People like the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, the beleaguered French President, Emmanuel Emmanuel Macron. And the chat, Sam, on the sidelines of that summit is going to be about Joe Biden's competence and this now increased risk that NATO skeptic Donald Trump could end up back in the White House. That disastrous debate is also greatly diminished Luxon's chance of a one-on-one in the Oval Office with Joe Biden. There'll be other opportunities for the two men to meet, perhaps a pull-aside at the summit. Luxon's also hosting a big Indo-Pacific meeting that Joe Biden will be at, and there's a White House dinner as well, hosted by Jill and Joe Biden, that Luxon will be attending. But make no bones about it, this will be Christopher Luxon's biggest diplomatic challenge yet. We are talking China, Ukraine, Gaza, with some of the world's most powerful people. And then on top of that, you've got this phenomenal political situation where the leader of the free world is fighting for his political survival.
A lot to keep across, Tova. I'm sure you'll keep us up to date. Thank you so much. Well, let's take a look at the day's weather, and judging by the photos, Heather, it was not bad.
An absolute stunning day, unless you woke to fog, and there was a lot of it for the Waikato, for Waitomo, for Whanganui and the Buller Valleys. Also freezing. With high pressure comes clear skies, and without clouds, which act like a thermal blanket, we get cold and frosty. -7, the lowest for the Desert Road, -6 for Mount Cook Airport, Tekapo and Twizel. Not much changes over the next 24 hours. Fog is already reforming for the usual spots, and I'll have details after sport.
Heather, thank you so much. Well, coming up next, nearly 900 people and no dentist. Is there a fix to the gaping hole in Great Barrier Island's health services? There's political gridlock in France just weeks out from the Olympics following the country's shock election result. Boeing cops a $400 million fine for misleading regulators during investigations into 2 fatal crashes. France's new parliament remains in political limbo following the shock result of the election and the left's tactical voting, which kept the far right out of power. A weakened President Emmanuel Macron has rejected the resignation of his Prime Minister, asking him to stay on to provide some much-needed stability. ITV's James Mates reports.
Newly elected members of the French Parliament turn up for work on day one with no idea if they're going to be part of the government or the opposition. If gridlock follows, they may never know. The Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, resigned last night and then promptly unresigned this morning. France has, after all, got an Olympics to run, and they need to at least look as if someone's in charge. And if a year of chaos beckons, there'll only be one beneficiary: Marine Le Pen and the far right, shocked at slipping from first to third place, but promising there'll be no stopping them next time. We'll be in a position to win a majority maybe in a year, she said, because France is going to be gridlocked, another year of illegal migration, of cost of living crisis, of insecurity. The French papers reflected the uncertainty. The slap, said one, referring to the blow dealt to the far right, while another saw France moving seamlessly from crisis to chaos. A centre-right politician who failed to get elected yesterday surveyed the makeup of the new parliament in this morning's papers and predicted things are going to get complicated.
We are entering a very strange and very, let's say, uneasy time for France.
Is Macron going to be able to govern with this parliament?
No. I think we have what we call in French a crise de regime crisis.
What happened yesterday was a triumph of tactical voting, millions of French men and women holding their noses and voting for whoever would defeat the far right. The celebrations last night by the left and the far left were all the happier because they were so unexpected. But their alliance is fragile, and they have neither an agreed leader nor a parliamentary majority. And looming over them, the prospect of a vengeful far right coming for them again next time if they can't make things work.
Severe flooding in Bangladesh's northern regions has left 16 people dead and 2 million people stranded after the Brahmaputra River burst its banks following heavy rain. Villagers waded in knee-deep waters to cross roads, while thousands have taken refuge in temporary shelters. Schools and businesses across the region have been closed. Further heavy rain is expected to hit central and southern regions in the next 5 days. Aotea Great Barrier Island is a jewel in Auckland's Hauraki Gulf, a paradise loved by locals and visitors. But a major health problem looms. There hasn't been a permanent dentist there for 8 years, and it's causing financial and physical pain for residents. Hannah Martin reports.
Rugged, isolated and unspoiled. But living in paradise can come at a cost.
We have no dentist on the island. We haven't had a dentist since 2022.
Seeing a dentist anywhere can be costly, but with Auckland more than 4 hours by ferry or 30 minutes by air, there's a real barrier to getting off the island.
It could be around $1,000 without even paying to see a dentist. So that, for a lot of people on this island, is just not feasible. It won't happen.
Instead, many put up with infections and pain, leaving some locals resorting to drastic DIY measures.
They will remove a tooth if they have to.
We got a first-hand look at the issue. Jeffrey Hills came into the clinic needing help after his false teeth broke chewing a piece of toast.
When you put those together, you can see
that there's a big chip out of them.
Well, there's a chip out of them there.
Yeah, sure.
And the crack starting all the way back there.
So then you just bit on something and it broke in half.
That's right.
Not having an on-island dentist means some residents go longer than they'd like without care. Barry Illingworth recently needed an extraction in Auckland.
Obviously, if I'd had more regular checkups, then it mightn't have got to that stage anyway. But that is the problem of having to fly off the island.
He needs a further exam and clean, but is putting it off.
On top of your dentistry work, that's it's pretty big coin.
Aotea's last on-island dentist retired in 2016, and fly-in fly-out services ended in 2022. Despite extensive advertising, they've not found anyone to do the job. But locals aren't giving up hope. The Dental Association has been in talks with Aotea authorities to get a volunteer service going, but it's logistically challenging.
The solution really lies with government planning and funding. Inaccessible care, because of geographical locations, needs intervention from government.
But that intervention is unlikely in the short term. Health New Zealand and the Health Minister say they're aware of the unique challenges places like the barrier face and are working with local groups to help solve the issues.
Well, still to come, the housing market's been described as ice cold, with prices continuing to fall. So what impact will changes to the Brightline test have? And later we meet Samuel, the one-winged cockatoo who goes to work every day except Wednesdays, that is bath day. Iran has confirmed a crucial wrong call during the Warriors' heartbreaking loss to the Bulldogs last week. This is 3 News. If you've just joined us, here are our top stories so far tonight. The son of a man who was killed after trying to help an abandoned child at a Christchurch park says his dad was extremely caring and would help anyone he could. Maiwa Singh died after being punched by the boy's father, who mistook his intentions. Pressure is building for the Green Party to force Darlene Tana out of Parliament, with Acting Prime Minister Winston Peters saying they have an obligation to use the waka jumping legislation. And rescuers continue to search for people trapped in the rubble after a Russian airstrike in Kyiv hit Ukraine's largest children's hospital. Boeing is to plead guilty to criminal fraud conspiracy for deceiving regulators during investigations into 2 fatal plane crashes. The charge relates to 2 737 MAX crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia that killed 346 people. The plea deal, which still needs the approval of a judge, will see Boeing fined almost $400 million and branded a convicted corporate felon. House prices are continuing to drop, with Auckland taking the biggest hit. Not only that, the latest quotable value figures show the rate at which they're falling is increasing. Marlborough is the only region where houses are going up in value. It's been a week since the government kept its promise to landlords to cut the Brightline test from 10 years to 2. The Brightline test is the closest thing we have to a capital gains tax. If an investment property is sold within that time frame, tax must be paid on the profit. But tonight we can reveal officials have no record of how much Brightline revenue has been collected by the government. Here's Zane Small.
Sarah Wilson has reason to smile. As a property investor, she now has the freedom to sell up 2 years after purchasing without being taxed on the profit.
Bringing it back to 2 years, it's good in that it still captures the property speculators and those that are flipping houses.
The previous Labour government increased the Brightline test to 10 years to help first home buyers into the market. The coalition government has now returned it to 2 years to entice more landlords into the market to increase supply and bring down rents. It's been such a political football, you'd think politicians would have a lot of detail about how much money the Brightline test was generating. But it turns out not a lot is known. Inland Revenue did tell us that just over $200 million in Brightline profit was declared to them in the year to March 2023. But how much of that was actually collected in tax by the government? Officials don't know. Inland Revenue said that's because prior to 2023, it was not able to specifically track the actual revenue collected from Brightline sales.
I am a little bit surprised about the fact they can't tell us how much tax has been collected from Brightline. You would guess that maybe these things were tracked.
I think it's a bit of a surprise, actually, that the revenue didn't collect that information earlier, in the sense that they probably wanted to know, and certainly the politicians would have wanted to know.
It does really surprise me.
Inland Revenue said only from the 2023 year onwards there was a specific field for Brightline income. So at least in the years ahead we'll have some clarity on how much the government's pocketing from investors selling at a profit.
Well, OK, Zane, homeowners, investors are going to be very interested in what's happening with the official cash rate review tomorrow. Any chance of a cut?
Not really. Most economists are predicting that it will remain at 5.5%. The Reserve Bank has previously signalled that it won't change until next year, but there is certainly pressure mounting for some relief. Remember, the official cash rate is the Reserve Bank's main tool to tackle inflation by taking cash out of the economy with higher interest rates. And we're already seeing that spending is down. The inflation rate is a lot lower than it was after the COVID lockdowns. The rate is still not quite within the Reserve Bank's target band. However, with the economy in such a slump at the moment, a growing number of experts are predicting that we could see a rates cut this year, and ASB is picking it could be November.
November. OK, Zane, thanks for that update. Gisborne District Council is in court seeking an enforcement order for a large forestry company, China Forestry Group New Zealand, to remove debris and slash from hills in the Waimata Valley. Slash caused widespread damage along the east coast during Cyclone Gabrielle, ripping through homes as well as covering beaches and farmland. The region's ratepayers have spent $1.2 million removing forestry debris from just 2 beaches since the cyclone hit. Gisborne Council says huge fines have not deterred companies from offending, and it wants enforcement action to tackle the issue. A woman whose family survived a shark attack in America has described how her Independence Day holiday turned into a horror movie. Tabitha Sullivan said she saw something huge and grey in the water, and then it attacked her. ITV's Sejal Karia has the story.
This was the shark lurking in shallow water that officials said attacked 4 people near a beach on an island off the southern tip of Texas. One of them, Mum Tabitha Sullivan, who spoke of the terrifying moment it grabbed her leg.
There were about 4 of us in the water. I had some teenagers with me. My daughter, 15, was with me as well. Sorry. All I saw was something gray in the water. So I kicked at it because I thought, oh my God, it's a huge fish. And it was coming at us. So I kicked at it, and that's when I think it grabbed my leg.
Her husband, Carey, she says, jumped into the water trying to fight off the shark, but it followed them and then attacked him.
He fought the shark. He's got 2 bites on him. He's actually in the room with me. He's next to me. It was crazy. Kind of surreal still.
Beachgoers went to Tabitha's rescue, pulling her from the water. She'll need multiple operations, but doctors believe she'll be able to keep her leg and walk again. And the couple weren't the only ones to fall victim to the shark. It attacked again and again, and authorities began patrolling the beach, warning people to stay out of the water.
As I understand it right now, we had 4 total attacks. It's believed that it probably was all with one shark. They all look like where he's just trying to find, or it's trying to find something to eat. He takes a bite, doesn't like it, and he moves on.
A helicopter kept a tab on the shark by flying very low until it swam away to deeper water. Tabitha Sullivan and her family say they feel lucky to be alive.
Well, Ollie is in soon with sport, and there's been a coaching change at the Highlanders already.
Yeah, big moves at the Highlanders. Jamie Joseph promoted to the head coach role. That means Clark Dermody has unfortunately been demoted. Only 2 seasons in the top job for Clark Dermody. They brought Jamie Joseph back as a director of rugby. They really were quite lucky to get someone of his standing back.
He's a huge superstar, isn't he, globally even?
Absolutely. He's coached internationally. He coached them to their only title back in 2015. He just missed out on the All Blacks top job to Scott Robertson, so he's very, very highly regarded. We will break down the Highlanders' decision soon. Plus, what advice one Kiwi tennis great has for Lulu Sun as she prepares for her Wimbledon quarter-final. And we catch up with the boss of the New Zealand Olympic team as the kick-off to Paris edges closer.
Welcome to a new swift world with Suzuki and 3News Sport.
The praise for New Zealand's latest sporting sensation is showing no signs of slowing down, with the only Kiwi to make it further than Lulu Sun at Wimbledon confident she has the poise to keep advancing. Chris Lewis, who made it to the men's final in 1983, says Sun just needs to keep doing what she's been doing as she prepares for tonight's quarter-final. As Natasha Payne reports, the 23-year-old is taking it all in her stride.
It might have been her day off, but Lulu Sun was back walking into Wimbledon today, this time as a fan.
I don't know if this is relaxing, but I do watch the other matches here at Wimbledon.
The 23-year-old defeated Britain's Emma Raducanu yesterday in the round of 16 to become the breakout star of the tournament.
No, she has it. And now we see what it means. The qualifier moves on. The qualifier through to the quarterfinals of a Grand Slam.
She'll be watched by Kiwis all over the world, including one who knows just how magical Wimbledon can be.
We're watching a fairy tale unfold, and Wimbledon is I've always held that Wimbledon is the place where dreams come true. And we're watching Lulu's dreams come true right now.
An unseeded player back in 1983, Auckland-born Chris Lewis made it all the way through to the men's final at Wimbledon. He says the journey is great, but the pressure is huge.
She has got the world's sporting public looking at every step she's taking on that court.
But the 23-year-old is finding ways to deal with it.
And I read a bit or watch YouTube videos.
Her chilled-out Kiwi approach helping her stay alive at Wimbledon.
She's just got to keep doing what she's been doing, undistracted, or not letting herself get distracted by anything other than what lies ahead of it.
And that's Croatia's Dona Vekic. The two go face-to-face tonight at midnight.
Tomorrow morning I'm going to warm up and prepare well enough before the match starts, yeah.
With Kiwi tennis fans hoping her already historic run continues.
Novak Djokovic has lashed out at the Wimbledon crowd after constant booing throughout his victory over Holger Rune. The Serbian cruised past the 21-year-old in straight sets in the round of 16. But whenever Djokovic scored a point, some of the crowd booed, the tennis great calling them out after his win.
Have a good night. Good night, good night. Very good night. Yeah, I played in much more hostile environment, trust me. You guys can't touch me.
The second seed will face Australian Alex de Minaur in the quarter-finals tomorrow. The Highlanders have wasted little time ringing in the coaching changes, with incumbent Clark Dermody demoted back to an assistant in favour of Jamie Joseph. Joseph returns to the head coach role after spending this season as director of rugby. Stuff Sports reporter Paul Cully joins us now to break this down. Paul, was this move a surprise?
I don't think it was a surprise, Ollie. You know, Jamie had been doing all the recruitment this year. I mean, you do feel for Clark Dermody, and Jamie told me this morning that it was a tough conversation with Clark, who I think was growing into the role. But Jamie Joseph is a world-class coach, test experience. You know, we know he applied for the All Blacks job as well. I know he's highly regarded within New Zealand rugby. So in that context, not a real surprise.
OK, Paul, what do you understand about whose call this was? Was it pushed forward by the board, or did Joseph instigate it?
Well, I think at the end of the season, the board and Chairman Peter Keane had a good think about the structure. And I spoke to Peter this morning as well, and he said, you know, both coaches were consulted all the way through. They were very respectful that it was a big change for Clark. But they ultimately decided that they could get the best out of both Jamie and Clark with this new structure.
What do the Highlanders actually get out of having Jamie Joseph back in charge?
To take the next step, especially in terms of recruitment, Jamie Joseph's a big attraction. If you're a guy that wants to progress his career, become an All Black, then Jamie Joseph's got a track record of doing that through the years. Waisake Naholo, Whakatoa, Aaron Smith. And, for the Highlanders who do need to take the next step, they're falling a little bit behind Chiefs, Hurricanes, Blues, then, Jamie Joseph's the guy to do that, isn't he?
Paul Cully with us there out of Dunedin. Well, just over 2 weeks out from the start of the Paris Olympic Games, and preparations for the event are ramping up. None more so than for New Zealand chef de mission Nigel Avery, who will lead our team of 190 athletes. Lucy Thompson caught up with him ahead of his departure to Paris.
There's just 17 days until the Paris Olympic Games kicks off. The New Zealand team is all but finalised, with a lot of the athletes already making their way to France. What have you made of Paris's readiness for the Games so far?
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. They only built 2 purpose-built sporting facilities. They've all been handed over long ago, and the village was handed over early and on budget. So it's quite comforting knowing that, because in prior games that hasn't been the case.
And this is fit to be a smaller New Zealand team than was selected for the Tokyo Games. Why is that?
A couple of things. So the rowing don't have a men's or women's eights. That's quite a large number of people, and the women's hockey unfortunately did not qualify. So largely for those 2 things is the reason why.
Now I have to ask about the unrest in Paris that we're currently seeing as a result of that shock election result. How are the New Zealand team approaching that?
Well, I think from a security perspective, it's they've got things dialed in. I'm not sure whether they actually had that as a scenario or not, but we're really confident in the security. And look, we've just got to play our part in making this an amazing game. So we'll obviously stay within the bubble and ask our athletes to do the same thing to make sure they're secure. But I think before the first athlete arrives, which is the 18th, I think a lot of it's going to calm down, or we hope anyway.
Of course, last campaign the Kiwis brought home a record 20 medals. What are your hopes for the medal tally this time around?
I haven't really thought about a tally, but I'm hoping that every athlete will smash it to the best of their ability. We know they can't all win medals, and I'm sure some will, but we're there to support everybody no matter what happens to them.
It'll likely be cold comfort for Warriors fans, but the NRL has admitted they made an error in not awarding a potentially match-winning penalty late in their 13-12 loss to the Bulldogs. Jamin Salmon appeared to make late contact with Tamari Martin as the Warriors halfback got a pass away with the game tied at 12-all. Head of football Graham Annesley says a penalty should have been awarded.
The bunker did review the incident, but they didn't give due regard to the issue of lateness. So we think this is a miss by the match officials and it's unacceptable.
Salmon has since accepted a 2-match ban for the incident. Not good news there for Warriors fans. Good news for Damien McKenzie though, Sam. New Zealand Rugby have confirmed they're going to put a shot clock in at Eden Park this weekend. He won't be timed out. He'll know exactly how much time he's got left.
He'll get that
he's
kick
better
away.
now.
Yes, let's hope. Let's hope. OK, thank you so much, Ollie. Actor Alec Baldwin has appeared in court for his involuntary manslaughter trial. It follows the 2021 fatal shooting of a cinematographer on the set of the movie Rust. Last week, the judge cleared the way for crucial firearms experts to testify about Baldwin's handling of the revolver and whether the gun was functioning properly prior to the shooting. Baldwin has denied responsibility for Helena Hutchins' death, saying the gun went off on its own. The controversial social media influencer Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan have been accused of failing to pay tax on $44 million of revenue. UK police are bringing a civil claim against the brother and a third person following claims they paid no tax in any country on earnings from online businesses earned between 2014 and 2022. A self-described misogynist, Tate is also facing charges of human trafficking, rape and forming a criminal gang to sexually exploit women. It has been a wet summer in the UK, but beachgoers weren't expecting even their ice creams to be flooded. An ice cream van in Cornwall was swept out to sea after being left by its owner. Passers-by tried to save it before the tide came in, but it was wedged in the sand. The van was eventually towed back in once the tide receded. Well, it is time now for a look at the upcoming weather. So far, the school holidays, Heather, It's been lovely.
Nothing like high pressure to keep the kids outside and busy. It's not budging either. So the next 48 hours will look very similar to what we've had today. On Friday, the centre does start to head southeast. We'll still have a ridge over us, but a southeast flow for the North Island will deliver a few showers out east, which linger into Saturday. I'll have the full forecast and more of your amazing weather photos up next. Kia ora, welcome back. We're in line for a carbon copy of Today Tomorrow with our monster high pressure system remaining firmly in place. A few weak features brush the coasts in the northwest and southeast, so a little cloudy there with a few showers. What weather maps like this don't show you though is the frost and fog, and with such a strong high in place, both are on the cards. Just like this morning, fog will feature early, clearing by the afternoon. So the South Island first, cloud overnight for the west coast with the odd shower to Fiordland. That's about it. So it leaves fine skies with frost to form, all with light winds. Tomorrow, frost, obviously, with morning fog or low cloud for Canterbury, and that won't lift properly till the afternoon. Now, the cloud along the west coast will break up towards Bulla in the afternoon, and all with light winds. North Island's turn, and it's similar to the south. Not a lot going on. There is the odd shower for Northland, but that clears with an easterly. Other than that, fine skies with frost and fog forming inland with light winds. Tomorrow might take a little bit to shake the morning fog, but when it does, it's nice and fine. The only real chance of showers will be along the Taranaki coast and for the far north. So the chance of showers sits over Northland with easterlies. Morning cloud clears everywhere else with fog around for Hamilton, shifting in the morning too. Plenty of blue sky here. Just some fog or low cloud expected in the morning for Tokoroa and Rotorua. Winds are light all day. Tauranga, the warmest with 15. Little frosty for Masterton, otherwise it's fine, just like everyone else here. There will be some cloud forming after midday for Dannevirke with light winds. Now the cloud will whip up in the morning, coming in from the west. Morning fog for Taumaranui too. The risk of showers increases from late morning for Taranaki, late afternoon for Kapiti, and the evening for Whanganui. Nelson, you're dry all day with light winds. Everyone else here in the northwest will have cloudy periods with the odd morning light shower and light winds. Foggy and frosty out east. The cloud might linger into the afternoon for Ashburton and Christchurch. Hopefully as low cloud and not as fog, which can be disruptive. Sou'westers develop in the afternoon. And it's dry for the rest of the island, but with variable high cloud and morning frost for the usual spots. Winds will be light, just a slight westerly for Stewart Island. It's not a whole lot going on around Dunedin. Fine, high clouds, a little bit of light winds. Chatham Islands, you might get a shower or two. Rain heads your way on Thursday. Now fog forms overnight around Christchurch. It'll lift slightly, but expect low cloud to linger into the afternoon. Then the sun returns. The same time, the sou'westerly develops. It's looking partly cloudy for Te Whanganui out to Wellington. You'll have a northerly during daylight hours. Then after sunset, it does shift to a southerly. Expect some morning patchy fog around Hawke's Bay. Not a lot of wind to help mix it up, but it will clear, leaving a good afternoon. It's another day of the fine weather for Tauranga. Just a light breeze, high of 14 or 15 degrees. Now the fog returns overnight around the Waikato. Might take a minute to lift too in the morning, but the afternoon's better. Winds are light again and looking good for Auckland. Any morning cloud clears, leaving blue sky with a high of 15 or 16, also with easterlies. So rain's expected from Perth to Hobart. It is finally improving up the east coast, and it's decent for the Pacific Islands, just showers for Samoa. All right, we're getting close to the weekend and there is very little going on up top. Very calm weather. There will be late showers developing Thursday out east, then isolated there on Friday and Saturday. Now the south of the island's good. Just a few showers early out west on Thursday, but mostly fine. Thursday for the entire south is fine. An absolute cracker day. It'll cloud over in the east late in the day Friday, but fine again Saturday. So the very pleasant and holiday friendly weather continues for another few days, so no excuse to get snapping. Send in your photos to weatherpics@stuff.co.nz. I would love it if they were landscape orientation, and let me know the location. Some are obvious, like this one, some not so much.
Look, you've got a lot of demands going on there, Heather, but I'm sure they'll come flooding in. Thank you so much. Well, earlier tonight we asked you what you thought the Greens should do, whether they should use the waka jumping law to force Darlene Tana out of Parliament. Well, it's a pretty clear result, actually. 87% of you saying yes. Well, finally tonight, a one-winged cockatoo has become a bit of a celebrity in Invercargill. Samuel is well into his 40s and goes to work with his owner, Lana Osborne, every day, except for Wednesdays. More on that in a moment. He also orders Macca's from his customised perch in Lana's car.
He's 40 years old. He's a bird rescuer from up in the North Island. He's sort of our town mascot to a certain degree. Lots of people love coming in and seeing him, and he's just a real great support. When I lost my son 5.5 years ago, Samuel has been there throughout the whole time, and he knows when things are really hard, and he's just been able to support, and he comes over and just gives you that real gentle, everything's okay. Unfortunately, about 5 months ago, Samuel had a freak accident where his ladder fell on him at home and shattered the bone on his wing, and he had to have his wing removed. Samuel comes in the car to and from work, so he's at work with me every day except for Wednesday, which he has a shower, and stays home and dries off. You do too. And it's quite funny because he gets a treat every so often. We go to McDonald's and go through the drive-through, and he's ordering his slice of cheese, and they all go running out and go, "Is that the bird? Is that the bird?" And they come running out so that they can give him his cheese. So he's quite well known around town.
How about that, a cockatoo that eats cheese? Fantastic. Well, that is 3 News for tonight. Thanks for joining us. You can get in touch with us by emailing newsroom@stuff.co.nz or head to the Stuff website. I'm Samantha Hayes, Paul Marie, and I'll see you again tomorrow.